this week's watch is an Oyster Perpetual two-tone 36mm. We chose to highlight this for a couple of reasons. It shows a couple of techniques we've not put on the channel yet. One is a dial refinish, which is something we don't very often do, but we did on this watch for reasons I'll go into later. The second is attaching this part of the end link where the gold has come off from the bimetal bracelet. Both things that make it quite an interesting, unusual repair that we've not yet shown on the channel. Other than that, the watch is in generally quite good condition. Inside, no signs of water ingress. Obviously something's got into the dial to make it discoloured. I first thought water damage. Looks like it's gone in through the bezel, through the glass seal, but underneath this dial there's actually zero signs of water ingress. So I wonder if maybe some sort of solvent's got in and damaged the varnish or something like that. And then, as I say, this part of the end links come off. When you adhere two materials together, such as this bimetal bracelet where Rolex are attaching gold and silver together, that creates a big technical problem in that when you solder two materials, you need both materials to have a similar melting temperature. You get the strongest join when not just the solder melts but both surfaces melt very slightly. Then you get one solid piece. When you've got gold and steel, the gold melts, depending on the alloy, around about 700 degrees, whereas stainless steel, again depending on the alloy, around about 1500 degrees, something like that. So you've got a big temperature variation there. There's no way you can solder those two materials in a satisfactory way, the same way as you could say gold onto silver. So it's possible that from new Rolex use an adhesive. I'm not sure exactly how they attach them. I would love some feedback in the comments if anybody does know. It does look like there is some adhesive residue on the bracelet, so either another repairer has reattached it before, or it could be that that's done from new. I'm not sure. I would, like I say, be very interested to know though. Other than that, the watch, as I say, the only real fault we found is the excess travel in the rotor bearing, which we do see quite a lot on automatic watches in general when they've not had their services kept up with. Right, let's just get this movement out and I can show you the dial in more detail. Yeah, we just screw the screws down in Rolex, turn until they meet the slots in the case, and the movement falls out, which is such an elegant system. I much prefer that to separate case clamps. And there we see that moisture damage. This was actually a champagne dial. Customer's brief was to keep as many parts as possible. This is his late father's watch, which has been passed down to him, so he wanted to keep this dial. Normally I prefer to source a genuine Rolex dial and replace like for like, but not an option in this case because the customer wants to keep it. And there we see that movement in the bearing, quite a lot of excess play there. Onto the timing machine. Here we are, we gain in time. Low amplitude of 160 degrees. When we service a watch, we want to get that amplitude above 270 degrees. That's basically how far your balance wheel is swinging. You get the timekeeping will always be best above 270 degrees. When it's below, you'll start to get positional errors and things like that, which are ironed out above 270 degrees. Low amplitude is a sign of lack of oil and dirt in the movement. It's basically friction in the movement that's not letting the power get through to the escapement. And we've got a beat error. We'd ideally need that to be below 0.3, and it's up at 2 point something there. Under the bezel, we see a lot of dirt, which again makes me think that whatever it was, the moisture ingress that got into this watch came in under the bezel and through the glass seal. Also see some watchmaker's marks inside there. Looks like it was serviced in July 2012 last. I'm not personally a fan of marks inside case patches. A lot of watchmakers do it, but yeah, I'm not a fan of doing that myself. These will probably come out in the ultrasonic, to be honest, as well. A couple of quite deep marks there on that lug. Other than that, the side should polish up nicely. Overall, it's a good watch. It should come up quite nicely with a service, case refinish and that dial refinish. On there we see that residue I was talking about. It does look like some sort of adhesive to me, so either this has been repaired already or it's stuck on with an adhesive from new. The first thing to do for us to get a strong join there will be to get rid of that adhesive residue that's left over, so I'll file that away, get some nice fresh metal. I do like to, when I'm using any sort of adhesive, leave a rough surface, so I don't want to polish that. I want to leave a key there for the adhesive. And my dad was a gas fitter, and he used to always, when he cleaned up piping for soldering, he would always use quite a rough steel wool, and he said that would, if a surface is too polished, that key's not there and it won't adhere properly. So I'm using quite a rough file here. I will also, we're doing this before the case and bracelet refinishing, so that this piece of metal, once it's reattached, can go through the same refinishing process as the rest of the bracelet, but we will leave this rough surface underneath. It is important to take that off there. We can't attach two materials together with any old residue left underneath. That should do. That's some pitting in there. That's not actually glue that's on those darker spots. So possible it was attached with heat in the first place. The pitting would suggest heat's been used at some point. Yeah, I really would, if anybody does know how that is attached from new, I would really appreciate if you do put in the comments, because it is something I would like to know. Go. You see this one on the other end is stuck fast, no problems with that. The rest of the bracelet, not too worn, quite good condition. There is that pitting to the case back. I think we probably won't remove that. That would probably take the case back too deep if we tried to go down to that. We don't want to leave it too thin, so we might leave that in place. So to reattach this, I'm using Loctite. This is, I've sworn by this compound ever since I was in university. We made a clock for our third year project. I had quite a large clock. It was quite a large gear module, 2 mainspring barrels and 2 very large mainsprings in them. So there was a lot of power going through this, a lot of torque, especially at the centre pinion. And I was advised by my tutors to use this compound to attach the wheels to the pinions. I was a bit dubious about that at first, but it has held fast. I've had the clock for about 5 years now, and there is a lot of power going through the train, and every single one of the wheels and pinions is attached with this Loctite, and they're all stuck fast. Here's a close-up of that dial. See, it's got the sunburst effect coming out from the centre. You can't see that too well now because of the dulling from the damage, but the refinisher we use, basically dial refinishing was something I was put off because I've seen it done very badly, and it took us a long time to find somebody who does it well. There is one person I've come across who does a great job, one company. They're the only ones we will use for dial refinishing. It's the only job we outsource in this workshop. We like to take control of a lot of the work because you can control quality. This is such a skill and such a specific skill, there's no choice but to outsource it, and there's only one place in the world I would outsource it to. If this company didn't exist and didn't do such a good job, we would go back to not offering dial refinishing at all. But in this case, with the customer specifically requesting it, and us knowing of somebody who does a great job, I think it's quite a nice solution for this particular watch. As I say, no sign of damage under there. We've got mild steel in watch movements, and as soon as you get moisture in there, they will rust within hours. And I'm pretty sure there's been no moisture in there, so I'm not quite sure what's happened with the dial. I suspect a solvent, because that would damage the varnish but leave the metal alone. Well, we've got a 3000 grade movement. Excellent movement. Most Rolex movements are excellent. This, as usual, bright rhodium plated finish. Looks like it's been serviced already. It hasn't yet. You saw I started the escapement there. That's not self-starting even when fully wound. That's what will happen when you have a beat error. As soon as it gets above 0.7, your escapement won't self-start. So if you have a watch where you're winding it and it's not taking off until you give it a little shake, you've most likely got a beat error. Sorry if you can hear a lot of noise outside. We are right in the middle of a city centre, so there are a lot of people out on the street as we're trying to record. So yeah, the microphone might pick that up, especially when I'm not talking. We have had quite a lot of constructive comments, constructive criticism in the comments, asking us to get closer in on the movement. The reality is that it's the limitation of the equipment we've got at the moment. If we try and go closer, it doesn't focus. So we have just monetized the channel. We've got quite a few subscribers recently, quite a few views, so we've got a trickle of money coming in from the channel now. Not loads by any means, but a little bit of money coming in. So the plan is now to reinvest that in better equipment. So I'm going to get 2 cameras, one so we can show more broadly what's going on, and one that we can do a close-up of the movement, and it will focus and you guys can see a bit more what's going on close up. Another comment we've had a lot of is about audio quality. We have actually got quite decent audio equipment. I was given it by my brother who's a musician, so I've got Shure microphones and things like that. The problem with the audio is it's quite a skill to use it properly. There's a lot of setting up to do. Loads of settings in the recording software. It's not a simple process. So we are getting to grips with that more. I think if you go back to the first videos we did and compare them with the later ones, there is an improvement. We've definitely got room to still improve with that, so we will keep going with that. Yeah, we've had a lot of great comments, a lot of useful criticism done in a nice way, so I do appreciate that, and a lot of subscribers, as I say, so thank you very much for that, everybody. Yeah, as I see here, the camera does kind of focus on my screwdriver rather than the movement, focus on the hands. This is all quite a new skill to us creating these videos, so we're learning as we go, but the plan is to just keep improving over time, and I think that we already are doing that, and we will continue to as well. We are stripping the movement down, putting it in the cleaning machine, bit of residual power on the mainspring there. Yeah, the train is moving freely. There we go, in the cleaning machine. We are fortunate enough to have a very good cleaning machine. It's the same ones I used at university, and we were very fortunate to find one from a retired watchmaker who barely used it. He was actually a clockmaker, so it had a few hours of use when we bought it. It was about 10 years old, but perfect condition basically. A good cleaning machine makes a big difference to watch servicing. We're rebuilding the movement. Barrel going in, that's got a fresh mainspring inside. I do like to put the Rolex technical guides tell you to start with building the keyless works first. I was shown how to service automatic watches by somebody who was a workshop manager at Rolex, and he showed me a technique of putting this barrel bridge on first, because the keyless works can be quite difficult to insert when there's nothing behind it to keep it in place. So quite often when I'm rebuilding them, I'll put the barrel bridge on with just one screw. I won't even put the barrel in. With this calibre I do, but with the 3-1 series I don't. I'll just put the barrel bridge in, one screw to secure it, flip it over and then build the keyless works because it holds everything in place. It's so much easier. And then you just take it off again. There we are, good movement there, that train's nice and free. I've said before, it's a testament to the build quality of Rolex that they can go for 20 years with no service. You take them apart, you clean them. Quite often we'll check the pivots and things like that, and there's no sign of wear, especially in the more modern movements, the 3.1 and the 3.0, the 1500 caliber ones. They do seem to, sometimes we have a lot of positional errors and things like that because those watches are getting on now, and we'll see them 40-year-old with no service, and you can have problems there. But these more modern movements, we do very often see them and they've gone 20-30 years with no attention, and the only real sign of it is the wear to the winding mechanism, the automatic winding mechanism. The wheels and pinions tend to last quite well. The jewels, perfect. We do see wear to plates, damage from the automatic assemblies. But yeah, great movements. One of the reasons we chose to specialise just in Rolex is they're a pleasure to work on. The quality is so high. Here's the dial back from the Refinisher. Try and focus in on that a bit. You see that starburst, sunburst pattern is back. Catches the light beautifully. The printing's great. It's just a great job. We reunite that with its freshly serviced movement. Screw it onto the case. I like to wear gloves when we're working, especially when we're putting watches back together. It just makes everything clean. You get less returns. As a workshop, we actually have a very, very, very low return rate because we like to keep everything inside quite clean as we're rebuilding. You avoid a lot of problems that way, and wearing gloves is just such a simple step, but it's very, very effective at keeping things clean. Another thing that I always push for people to check is making sure that it's such a simple thing, but it's amazing how many watchmakers neglect it. Make sure all the hands are parallel to each other and to the dial. Now, there's a lot of different ways to put hands on. I use these handheld tools. We also have tools that are mounted so that you can't possibly do it. Well, you can possibly still do it wrong, but it decreases the chances of doing it wrong. But it's quite often we get watches in for service and the hands are not parallel with the dial, not parallel with each other. We even sometimes get GMTs where there's scratching on the dial where one of the hands has been put back on, touching the dial. So yeah, it's such a simple thing to check, but that will, if you do that right, you keep everything clean, you get the oils in the right place, watch repair can be quite consistently done well without returns, especially, as I say, with high quality movements like these. That's me checking that they're not touching each other, and there we go, keeping it clean as we go. So I don't often show it in the videos, but as I work, I have that blower next to me all the time, and I'm constantly picking it up and using it. It's just become a habit. It's a good habit to have. Even if I don't see any dust or anything like that, I'll be building the movement. I'll put something in place. I'll put the bridge over it, secure it with a screw, and then blow it with the blower. Even if I've not seen any dust or anything like that, just as a habit. Yeah, we're looking much better already. There we see. I push the crown back in. It removes the hack lever from the balance, and it self starts because we've got rid of that V-turn. This is my favourite part of every service, where we put the movement back into the case. it starts looking like a watch again rather than a collection of parts. I don't actually do the case and bracelet refinishing, my colleague does, so I also enjoy getting those back, and he's very good at what he does. So we get the case and bracelet back looking, especially with Rolex, I know I keep saying it, but the quality is so good that they do polish up beautifully. It's one of the best parts of the job is handing the watch back to the customer and they've not seen it in that condition for 20 years. I use this Persian grease, very good waterproofing grease. We change the seals on the crowns and in the case tube, a little drop of this Persian grease and it will pass the pressure test, no problems. Another thing with Rolex is always remember when you put it back in the case to unscrew these case securing screws. We do see a lot of Rolexes when they've not been to Rolex, when they've been to other independent repairers, they come in and these screws aren't in the right place. They're screwed down and the movement can move. It's surprisingly how often we see that. Here we are, again with the blower just to make sure there's nothing in there. And the watch is looking much fresher. Check everything's winding, check the hands are moving, check that the crown's screwing to the case properly. That's all got to be located in the right place before you do the screws. But if you do the screws first before you screw the crown in, you can have that thread just off a little and it will cross thread. We have the new seal. That writing in the case back has survived the ultrasonic cleaner, so we just leave that in place. We don't add to it. And the case back on. We'll tighten that on the case closing tool. But yeah, that's other than tightening the case back and refitting the bracelet, that's one finished watch, looking much better. And here we are with the test. You see we've got that amplitude at 316 degrees, give or take a little. That's much better. Hardly any friction in there at all. No beat error. And we're losing 5 seconds a day. Our timing machine's got an offset of 8 seconds, so that's actually gaining about 3 seconds a day, which is in chronometer spec. So yeah, that is another service done. Watch is looking much fresher, and the customer was actually very happy with this. Case and bracelet refinished and looking good. We try and keep that crown logo on the clasp sharp and looking good. And here we are, we see the watch in a wolf winder. I love the way that this cut bezel catches the light. A very nice watch and sentimental value to it too.